Hey guys, Ryan here. 5 years it's been since the release of Power Rangers 2017. Saban Brands and Lionsgate's attempt at building a Power Rangers cinematic universe kind of thing. Even at the premiere event, Saban Brands and Mr. Haim Saban himself teased multiple sequels, and the film would also use Easter eggs to kind of clue us in on the direction of travel. A new Green Ranger Tommy being the obvious antagonist for the sequel, but also referencing the Zeo crystal so early on, potentially hinting at where they wanted to eventually end up. Sadly, it was not meant to be, with the film making just over $142 million on a $100 million budget. Factoring in sharing the box office split with movie theatres and of course the marketing spend for the film, yeah, it didn't make enough money. Obviously, it's famous IP, it's still with us now in TV show form and various other mediums, and even as soon as 2019, they also announced that they were looking at developing a new film series with Paramount. So yeah, it's been 5 years, we've not really heard anything much else, and you kind of have to wonder, if the film had been a success, would we be seeing trailers for the third film at this point? It's kind of fun to think about, but to be honest, I'm not losing sleep over the fact that this particular incarnation never got any more material. Yeah, unfortunately this is going to be a bit of a negative video as we discuss what happened with the Power Rangers 2017 movie Toyline. I've said it multiple times now, Bandai were up against it around this time. I feel like Saban might have put some kind of undue pressure on Bandai at the time. Bear in mind they were working on 3 separate lines in 2017, and you can definitely argue they didn't do any of them justice. As obviously a long-time fan, and with Toys R Us still being in full swing, it was quite fun to go into their stores and see a new Power Rangers movie taking over so much of the front display area of the store, and of course getting a decent showing in the action-adventure aisle as well. It all seemed positive, even if to me the toys weren't that great. Clearly I still got quite a few, but yeah, I could have had a lot more if I was going in after everything. I think this is quite an interesting line of toys, because Bandai probably wanted to get the majority of a year's shelf time out of them. But you know, an action-adventure movie for kids, does each movie really deserve a year on the shelves? I think that's probably why I saw so many of them clearanced and discounted really all the way down. And that's supermarkets where they just need to get the toys off the shelves and get the shelf space back. That's not even in the context of Toys R Us, which were by 2018 going through their own woes in their closed down sale, where everything was getting discounted more and more. It is kind of weird that over a full year later so many of those movie toys were still available, and weirder still how many actually got cancelled from being produced in the first place. Julio Coolio on YouTube has done a really useful video on which toys were planned but never released. Some of it is going to come up again here, but I really recommend going to check out the full video on his channel. So let's talk about figures, because this was actually the 4th year of Bandai's Action Hero mode that they still apply and use in the basic line of figures for the movie. Now, as you can see, there were only actually 8 different figures to collect. Yeah, okay, it kind of expands to 13 if you count the non-metallic versions of the 5 Rangers, and there were definitely some hinted at on the back of boxes, which were unfortunately never produced, though would have given us some decent scale putty figures. Having collected an awful lot of the Super Mega Force and Dino Charge figures, these seem like a quality dip. I think a problem across the entire line is just how limited on paint detail they are. To be honest, it stands out on all of them. I've actually applied a bit more paint to my out of packaging Alpha 5, but yeah, you look at these figures and you think these have really only had like a budget coat of paint applied to them, which was such a step down from what they were doing with the TV show figures, and you had to wonder, are these being put together separately or on a budget of half what the TV show figures get? It just seemed very peculiar that these figures, which for a time felt like were everywhere, were just so badly detailed compared to what they were doing for the main series. All 6 figures in the metallic pack are all exclusive to it. There's no way to get the metallic figures separately or the Goldar at all out of that pack, so you kind of had to get that if you wanted a Goldar, and honestly that was good enough for me. It felt kind of special to have a whole team done out in that finish. I know they'd done 5 of the 10 Dino Charge Rangers in that style as well just a year before, but they were an easy pass. This, the whole team, all at once, easy win for me. The reason I have both sets and I have the non-translucent metallic versions as well is because they were reduced to clear in a supermarket, and it cost about as much as one figure to get all 5, so yeah, I thought, why not? The weapons, or lack thereof, are a bit of a disappointment. I think we could have said this about the movie itself. Obviously you get the power sword, and then the other 4 rangers just get this kind of energy effect. None of them are painted, it's lazy, it's lame, and annoyingly too, this 5-inch Goldar figure doesn't even come with his signature power sword. Compare it to the 45cm Goldar, where his sword is literally grafted into his hand and cannot be removed. You might say, what was the point of doing a 5-inch Goldar anyway, because he actually only appears in the movie grown? But you've got to give the Rangers someone to fight, and yeah, I guess they did Rita, but really putties would have been the perfect solution. And you know, a lot of fans out there definitely would have army built them. So yeah, it seems a bit of a miss by Bandai not collecting on our desire to collect putty armies. The Alpha figure is decent, especially if you can paint him up a bit more, though it is a shame that he's lacking a Zordon or command center to put him in. Again, this was something that was planned but never released, I guess with shelf space at a premium and it not being necessary. It was an easy cut for the line. And looking at the sneaky picture that someone managed to get out of there from a toy fair, you can tell this thing looks pretty cheap, and it's probably something quite simple for anyone with a 3D printer and inkjet printer could whip up in like an afternoon. But still would have been nice, and kind of cool that Bandai were looking at creating a screen accurate command center after what they gave us in '94, the power dome in place of the screen used command center. Articulation on these figures, sadly not. It's there, but it's definitely not as plentiful as you got on the TV show figures. There's no posability in the forearm or feet, so the poses that you can achieve with them are limited. It's probably why on the movie we only really ever saw them walking places. The detail on the helmets is nice, I'll give it that. Though it is strange that the female figures are so much taller than the male figures, that seems like a mistake. Another one. Some points for effort we should give them, that the pin joints that are on there, they are coloured the same as the figure part, so good for them. These of course weren't the only figures available for the movie. There were also some Funko Pops, some mini figures, some quite cool, I will admit, light up chest figures, some Spin Morphin figures. I like the idea of bringing back Automorphins, but I don't like them doing it in this way, especially that weird leg pose they're always in. They were also bigger than the action figures. I think they were about 6.5 inches, so I don't know why they had such an array of scales going on, though larger would have been your only way to get an actual putty figure, with of course some action feature in there as well, so might have been fun. I think I did see the putty once, and I definitely saw Rita with a twirling staff a million times. I was still seeing it in stores in summer 2021, so yeah, the 2017 movie toys kind of haunting up independent toy stores across the world, I imagine. Another option were the Toys R Us exclusive Power Rangers Legacy scale figures. You had to buy 6, which were the 5 Ranger colours and Alpha, and with those parts you could create the Megazord, and a nice Megazord it was as well. They did release a slightly nicer painted version of it at I believe a toy fair or a Comic-Con, similar as well with the Red Ranger in a metallic sheen. Those figures weren't bad, but I think by this point I knew I was kind of breaking away from the Legacy figure collection, so they were an easy skip, especially because on initial release they were more expensive than the regular series figures. I remember at one point when Toys R Us were half off, I nearly drove well out my way to like 3 stores to buy all 6, but in the end I thought, oh, I don't want them, I'll just stick with the action heroes. I think because so much time had passed from release of the movie to that point, my hype for the movie had kind of evaporated as well, so yeah, close but not close enough. The command center was obviously one big loss, but I think the single biggest miss of the Power Ranger toy line cancellations was not quite the Green Ranger Rita figure that you're probably thinking I'm going to say, though still is Rita themed. They were going to carry on the then and now packs with a Rita making us rebuy this one, but also giving us a 5-inch action hero Rita in scale with the Power Rangers Legacy 5-inch figures they'd already released, and indeed were re-releasing for the Then and Now packs. That would have been for me a definite must buy, although considering, as we've mentioned, how many Twirling Staff Rita action figures still exist on shelves around the world now, I can sort of see why they didn't go for it. But considering like the molds were finished for these toys, the Rita, the Command Center, probably the putties, it's just such a shame that they never saw the joyful neon lighting of a toy store shelf. Moving on to the role play, another staple of Power Rangers Toyline lore, and you'd think by this point they'd be nailing it. And in some ways for the 2017 movie they were, but really swing and a miss for the Morpher, because this is probably one of the worst Morphers Bandai ever did. For one thing, it never actually appears in the film, especially being used as a Morpher. They focus more on the power coins, and Bandai acknowledged this as well by releasing a legacy light-up case of just the power coins. So yeah, they knew that the Morpher was a bit of a Trojan horse with this toy line. It's something that they wanted you to have because you probably expected to have it, but really it was all about the coins in the 2017 movie. Another misfire creatively. I'll give them some credit, it was quite cool that they were able to do this kind of translucent dinosaur coin effect. We hadn't had that before, so it was cool to see something new, a new take on the old dino theme. A shame though that they are so hard to see in there, like I would constantly be like moving it around the light trying to find the dinosaur. They are there, but compared to like the 93 versions where you could see the dinosaurs really clearly even from a distance, it is strange that they went in this direction. And I said this recently, I think it speaks to a reluctance or a shyness on the producers' parts who really embrace the Power Ranger iconography, those elements that we're all looking for. They really kind of buried it deep, kind of made it an Easter egg. The only thing they were really in your face about in the movie were Krispy Kreme donuts, and that was because they were like giving them some of the budget. But yeah, the dinosaurs that these Rangers are based on, they're so hard to make out in their suits, in the helmets, in the Morpher, the power coins, in the Zords that are literally supposed to be the dinosaurs, though for some reason have ridiculous things like 8 legs. Like, where is the stuff we're expecting here? Like, I get that they're trying to appeal to a new generation of kids as well, but I just don't know if they achieved that, especially with how limited they were with screen time for them all. Yeah, the Morpher has this kind of friction bike rev up kind of feature, and obviously lights and sounds, but nowhere near what they were doing in the equivalent TV series line where there were multiple sounds and different components actually activated different sounds. This felt like a bit of a retro rewind where the plug-in, what in the TV series had become the gimmick collectible, were all just the same again, and just like the original 90s Morpher, they all played the same sound, and that I feel was a missed opportunity. I remember seeing the Morpher discounted to like £7.99, so a big fall from the 30 they originally wanted for it. I remember feeling quite excited that we were getting a new movie and a new movie Morpher, and then to have it before the movie and feel quite neutral on it, and then for it to not play a role in the actual film itself, it seemed like we were being swindled in some way and sold something that we didn't need to have. I remember by the time the Legacy coin set was released, I was so over it. I thought, I don't need larger versions of those power coins. They look like pancakes or something, like they don't do anything other than light up in the box. Don't need them. No offense to any of you out there, if you did buy them, I'm sure they're a great display item. The Power Sword is an interesting one. I actually don't mind this thing. I think I got mine for about £8 or £9. It was definitely reduced to clear. It was definitely sometime after the movie. I knew it was very short, kind of kid-sized, but I'm not actually disappointed by this. I think it's quite cool. You hear what I'm pretty sure is Dacre Montgomery's voice in there. You can alternate between battle mode, which is just like free motion activated effects, and training mode, which adds a nice little beat to the background and instructs you to swing the sword to slash imaginary putties and get a score, or keep trying if you've not nailed it perfectly first time. Although I don't really even like the look of Movie Power Sword, I think this was quite a good use of electronics, something we'd see a lot more when Hasbro became the owner of the toy license. But yeah, this was decent. This was Bandai kind of showing what they could do with electronics, and it did actually add a bit of appeal to what is otherwise quite a plain toy. If you were in the States and lived near a Target, which I imagine many of you do, you could even get non-screen accurate variants of the Power Sword in all 5 Ranger colours. So yeah, that was kind of cool. I think the sound effects inside were the same though, so still the Red Ranger's voice. That of course was the only weapon shown in the Power Rangers movie, so the only kind of roleplay weapon we got, although there were some sound activated masks as well, and a cancelled Megazord one. Thanks again Julio Coolio for that shout. Roleplay for the movie was very limited, and I think everyone focusing on the Morpher was probably the wrong move, because it's actually very uninteresting, especially compared to the better Power Sword. And lastly, what happened with the Zords? Like, seriously, we could do a whole video on this. I really vehemently dislike the 2017 movie Zords. What do you guys think of them? They were, in a word that I've used several times before, melted. They look like they should have been mascots for Burger King's Meltdown campaign, where they're trying to phase out the plastic kids meal toys. They are so bad, plain and unappealing. I have no idea how they made it this far, like all the way through design, production, both for the movie itself and indeed for the toy line. Bandai didn't even know what to do with this, and I think it really exposed the shortcomings of Bandai America when they weren't working to the Super Sentai and Bandai Japan blueprint. You may remember on the movie you never actually see the Zords combine. They kind of fall into a fire pit, they think happy thoughts, and they emerge as the Megazord. There was just not really any consideration given to 5 Zords becoming a Megazord. It was just kind of wish fulfillment. They really gloss over it in the movie. They sort of say that the Zords base themselves on what are the kind of strongest warriors around. So naturally they first mirror themselves on dinosaurs and then on Goldar. So you can actually see quite a lot of similarities between Goldar and the final form Megazord. And again, I think this was such a strange choice. Why make the Rangers Megazord like a mirror opposite of Goldar, your villain? Like, come on. You may recall there were multiple ways to get a Megazord, the aforementioned Legacy Builder figure being a nice example of one. Bandai did do a combining Megazord, released as 5 Zords, and also in a Toys R Us exclusive giant box. Let me try and stress how big this box was. I remember nearly buying it when it was half off. I think it was £57.49, and that's with 50% off it, and just thinking, no, I don't need a Megazord box that big in my life. I need a regular scale Megazord where all the Zords look right and combine right. Whereas if you ever watch reviews for that combining Megazord, you really see that Bandai were just trying to make it work however they could. There were some interesting design choices there for the combination. I don't think all of it particularly works, and you'd probably want to do quite a big custom paint job, as I know some people have, in order to make it look just a little bit more screen accurate, because what you get out of that combined version doesn't look like what you see in the film. The other big weird disadvantage of it is that it's huge. Bandai set out to make the biggest Megazord they've ever done, but then there's nothing it can compete against, because the Goldar they released in 45cm size, the combining Megazord is bigger again. I remember getting quite good deals on the 2 of these. Goldar I got for £12.50 instead of £29.99 from the Toys R Us close down. The Megazord I think I got for about £25 off eBay. To be honest, I wish I'd waited, because both now actually sell for even less than that, especially if you're willing to buy a used one off eBay. I'll admit it was quite a nice idea that they brought back minifigures for this Megazord. You know, we've covered that quite extensively on the channel recently with the Time Force Megazord and Time Flyer Jet set. These are obviously much bigger than those. You would end up with 2 sets of them, one that goes in the interactive Megazord and one set that goes in the combining Zords. And actually with the Goldar figure you also get an in-scale Rita Repulsa who can be put inside Goldar, same as she is in the film as well. So another nice neat touch. It does cynically make you wonder, did Bandai ask the filmmakers to make a scene where Rita goes in Goldar, or was it the other way around? Bandai just got told, make it so that Rita can go in the Goldar figure. Cool. Obviously the combining Megazord doesn't hold together very well, whereas the interactive Megazord doesn't separate at all. I think for me especially, the interactive Megazord was the better choice. It does more. Again, they've thought more about the appeal of electronics and actually having some motion activated sounds as well. So yeah, again, a toy where I think the ambitions of Bandai America were kind of leading the charge with that one, but maybe just especially the way it was realised with the combined version just rushed. And maybe they tried to gloss over just what a bad transformation it was by making it quite hard to get all of them in the first place. I feel like the Megazord was just a bit of a con because there's no good solution. You either get these giant Zords that are too big, that don't combine accurately, or you get this combined Megazord that won't come apart into the Zords that they're based on. So yeah, it just kind of sucks. It makes me wonder if Hasbro will ever look at touching this for the Zap line, or if the rights are too far over from their scope of influence. I, to be honest, can probably go another decade or so without thinking about this Megazord again. Yeah, okay, some of this is decent and I'm sure kids would have got a kick out of. And it does have elbow articulation, which is a nice rarity on Megazord toys. A shame though just how rigid and immovable its legs are. I think as a fan I really resented how much space all this stuff took up, because usually with a series toy line you're given multiple episodes over multiple months in which to kind of come round to the idea of the Megazord. Some series like the original Mighty Morphin and indeed kind of newer shows that go on for multiple years, they would show you the same Megazord over and over again, so you kind of develop this fondness for it. And then of course the Zords had more to do and more to combine with later, and the toys themselves have always been in this quite nice scale. And for the movie to come along and just blow that scale out of the water and say, this is the scale we're using for this, but not for that, it was just a bit offensive. And the fact that you only ever see them on screen like one time in one movie, you just didn't develop enough fondness for it for these things to take up that much space in your life. Goldar has a few action feature switches on his back. It's pretty plain and actually comes across as a bit archaic in comparison to the interactive Megazord that it fights against. But hey, 2017 Goldar, in all senses of the word, is just plain. Honestly, the Power Rangers 2017 toy line is just a textbook example of how not to do a Power Rangers toy line. It really backs up the people who are concerned about the idea of Hasbro breaking away from Super Sentai, when this is all that America could come up with design-wise when branching out on their own. I just remember this overwhelming dissatisfaction and just disappointment that what was almost a bigger, cooler idea in our heads was realised in such an unlikable way. With the Rangers suits, I think there was a lot of rightful criticism that they were sort of basing it too much on Iron Man because of MCU popularity, toning down crucial elements like the Morpher, but then releasing a version of it that just kind of looks really plain and boring. Probably didn't endear anyone to this film. And then the literally biggest misstep of all, the Megazords and Zords. As Zords, they were not really things I wanted to have around. As a Megazord, I get they're going for like this knight idea, and yet despite being fully CGI on screen, more than any other Megazord, I think it comes across as a guy in a suit. And also it sucks that it doesn't have any expression of eyes or even a mouth, which I know not all Megazords have. There's just this visor there, a bit like the helmets on the Rangers. It's not enough, you need something a bit more. Power Rangers 2017 I genuinely think was Bandai's worst toy line, and that's quite a hard thing to say when you look at things like they did for Operation Overdrive and Ninja Steel. But yeah, this for me was an experience of collecting reluctantly, where I was buying things because it felt like this cultural moment, that this was a time that I'd been waiting for, but ultimately I just wasn't satisfied by what I was actually getting in return for it. Cold, unlovable, unlikable are all words you can use to describe this look, these designs. You never know, in decades time we could be looking fondly back at this and saying, wow, what a great time that was for Power Rangers design. Yeah, I'd be curious to know how we actually would ever get to that point, but who knows, right? Things could get worse, things could get better. I guess we'll have to see. It'll definitely be interesting when inevitably we do eventually get another take on a Power Rangers movie. They are obviously few and far between, but intellectual property like this that's mostly designed to sell merchandise, it is an inevitability. I just hope that the merchandise that it will create is stuff that you actually want. Clearly some things to like, a great embrace of electronics and motion activated stuff, which wasn't really something we'd seen before. Just a shame then that in the same line, the true fundamentals of Power Rangers were kind of sacrificed in order to try and create something that they maybe thought would go down better. Risky strategy clearly didn't pay off on this occasion. Really weird when you think about the 3 Power Rangers movies so far. The original 95 mostly just gave us repackaged Rangers and Zords from the TV line, with the occasional new touches like the deluxe Ectomorphicon and Ivan figures, and some of the action figures like the Tenga Warriors and stuff, but keeping it very firmly rooted to the Super Sentai it was based off. Then for Power Rangers Turbo, not even a Toyline acknowledgement of it being a movie, just carrying on with Turbo, the series being the products you were buying because it was all the same anyway. And lastly, with the 2017 movie, completely American original designs, completely American original toys, but just kind of showing up the limitations of that approach, that you do need people that know what they're doing with creating Megazords and designing Power Ranger suits in order to make them work properly. What did you guys think of Power Rangers 2017, the movie and the toy line? Do let me know in the comments, and follow me on Instagram at powerrangergram. Subscribe here. Very happy for the channel to recently hit 12,000 subscribers. Hello to everyone that's new. That is it then for this one, so until the next time, see you later.
Let's swing a right hook in it. You've almost got it. Let's keep training.